Thank you to everyone who's joining us right now. My name is Lily Jagosinski, and I am an event specialist from Move United. We are thrilled to have you all join us here. This is our sixth series, or sixth session within this series, and we appreciate you joining us. We are also joined here by some special guests, as well as our panelists that we usually have. So thank you to Krieg Serwort. He has been here. He is a Paralympian. He is an award-winning athlete, as well as Daniel Romanchuk, who has won multiple marathons, Paralympian as well. And thank you guys for joining us through this entire series. And today we also have a special guest, Barry Ewing from Eagle Sports Chairs, and you can see all three of our guests here on the screen at this time. We want to remind you today that this session will be recorded. We are streaming live to Facebook as well. All attendees are on mute right now just to minimize distractions, but if you have any questions, there's an opportunity for a Q&A at the end. So at the bottom of your screen, you can click the Q&A button and you are able to ask us questions about wheel alignment today. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Krieger, who is going to start us off and tell us more about some wheel alignment.
All right, thanks, Lily. Hello, everybody. Okay, let's dive right into it. Toe in, toe out, guys. This is a very interesting subject, and yeah, I think it's good for all of us to know a little bit about it. I still feel I know enough about it. I don't do it enough, but you know, if you talk to someone like Barry Ewing that's joining us today, he can share a lot of stories about toe in, toe out, because you know he's in the manufacturing business. But yeah, it can be tricky at times. But I think let's just dive into to get an idea of what toe in, toe out means actually. Okay, so toe in, toe out. It's just the running path of your wheels in relation to each other. Okay, so the wheels need to be parallel to each other when on the road. Okay, and if they are not parallel to each other, they're going to cause friction on the road, and that's the last thing you want. Okay, so friction on the road means slower speed, tires gonna wear off, and you're gonna get more tired, and you're not gonna understand why am I struggling like this, and so you need to be able to know what that is. So quick, you know, just to illustrate you a little bit, here's two wheels. So if I'm the racing chair and those are two wheels, they need to be parallel like this. Okay. If it's toe in, for instance, in front, the wheels will go in. I over-exaggerated now. They will go in and front. So the right wheel want to go to the left, and the left wheel would want to go to the right. So actually, what they want to do is they want to cross paths, and because of that causes friction, and it's just going to slow you down tremendously. Or if it's toe out, the back of the chair, like I'm the chair again, the back of the chair is going to be, the wheel is going to be too close to each other in the back and too wide open in the front. So what these two wheels want to do, they want to run away from each other. You know, they want to do that. So, and that is, you know, I don't know which one is worse. Both is bad. You wanna judge for both of those. Secondly, so again, I am the frame, and say for instance, the wheels are true. They are parallel to each other like this now, okay? But in relation to the frame, they go both in a left direction, or they both go in a right direction. So you also want to adjust that so the two wheels stay true to the line of the chair, the main frame. That is just in short what it means, you know, toe in and toe out. There are definitely times you have to check for it, okay? So it's not something you're going to check every day. You'll be very good at it if you do check it every day, but lucky you don't have to do that all the time. I always like to check it before a big race. Say, for instance, you do Boston Marathon, where you know, or Peachtree Road Race. you know there's going to be a lot of downhills that night after your travels. You get in the hotel and you go, you know, if the bathroom is big enough, you take your chair in a flat area where you can put it on a level floor. Not ideal on a carpet. On a hard level floor is the best. Check it in your bathroom the night before a race. Another time would maybe be after you hit a curb or a pothole. Definitely if you wrecked somewhere, if you went over and you crashed, that's a good time to check your towing rod as well. There's times that you can just be in the chair and you can hear, you know, there's a more of a squeak sound in the wheels, and that's also good. And that can be because, you know, there's the toe in, toe out. If it's not toe in, toe out, it can be the tires that's low, but that can be a problem, your problem as well. What is not okay after long you see, you know, if you had several travels back to back and you've maybe they've been hard handling your chair. You know, I've seen actually in the when I traveled, my chair went down the belt and fell on its side, and most of the time it's probably still okay, but you never know. It's a good time to check that. Another really important one is actually if you just feel like you feel slow. It might not be because your arms are tired. It might be because, you know, there's a toe in like this or a toe out like that. Then it's a good time to check it as well. But yeah, it's surely a tedious process. It's definitely not for the faint-hearted. But I think if you do practice it and do it a couple of times back to back and routinely just check it, it gets a little bit more easier. But to do this process, I think the best is, you know, let's ask the experts how they do it. Daniel, if you do your alignment on your chair, you know, is there anything you can show us? Give us some advice there.
Yeah, man, that just all of the things you were rattling through, I was like, yep, that's changed my toe. That's changed my toe. That's changed it. So I remember back in 2017, I was at an international meet, and I was involved in a pretty big crash, and I ended up on concussion protocol, and so I was not allowed to even touch my chair for around a month. And but when I was able to finally get back in my chair, I just felt slow. And I had a race coming up in about a week, and so we're just trying to figure out, you know, what's going on. You know, is it my sleep? Is it nutrition? You know, what's going on? You know, is it just a month too long? And we got to checking my chair, and sure enough, between the crash and the flight, my toe was about a ½ inch off. And so we fixed that, and everything was perfect. So it can have quite an impact on your performance. But how do we know if we have a chair that has toe in, toe out, or that ever elusive just perfect? So on a perfectly aligned chair, the distance between the left and right wheels at a certain height is going to be the same in the front as it is in the back. And so that is the ideal situation. But it's really difficult to get a good, reliable measurement of, just because you have to be at a certain height in both the front and the back. And there's lots of variables that can be playing into it. And so And usually we're looking for a difference in the distances is usually on the order of millimeters. And so before we get into actually checking it, let's go over kind of the conditions under which you should be checking it. So first of all, doing it on, as Creed mentioned, doing it on a hard floor. A carpet is not a good idea. You want to make sure that your wheels are nice and level. Number two, if it's possible, you actually want to be in your chair and have someone else check the toe for you, because being in your chair can actually change the toe a little bit. And the last thing that we want to make sure of is that all of our wheels are tight and the tires are fully inflated. And once we have checked all three of those off, we can now get into checking the toe. So there are two two kinds of gauges that I have at the moment. There are more styles out there. These are just the two that I happen to have. There's this style, which is a digital. So it will actually give me a reading. It'll display a number on a little screen here. And I can check it that way. Or the by far the most common kind that I've seen is this. So this is a toe gauge or alignment gauge from Top End, and it is basically comprised of two halves that can slide in and out depending on the width of the chair that you're measuring. And then it's got these two silver pieces that can again slide in and out to give you a measurement of the exact to a nice precise degree. And so I've locked pretty much everything down right now. And then I'm going to go to the back of my chair here. And I'm going to unlock one of these and put it in. On the other one, the silver piece, I'm going to line up with the edge of the rim on the wheel. And so that is right there on that side. I'm going to make sure that stays right there. And then on the other side, I'm going to try and line up the other silver piece with that same spot on the wheel. And so you don't want to do this against the tire because that can introduce a little bit of a variability. But once I've got everything nice and adjusted, I just want to make sure that everything is locked down. Both my silver pieces and the two halves are nice and locked down. And I'm going to pull that out from the back. And now we have the distance between my right and left wheel at a certain height. And so now that we've checked it in the back, it's time to move over to the front. And if the distance is the same in the front here, that means that we have an aligned chair. And so I'm going to, again, just make sure that everything is right on the edge of the wheel and right on the edge of the wheel here. And it might be hard for the camera to see, but there's a tiny gap between the silver piece and the wheel. And so it's probably around a millimeter or less. And so that means that I'm toe out. So my front measurement is bigger than my back. And so for me and this chair, that is perfectly fine. Because I know that I toe in my chair when I'm in the chair. And so that is perfectly fine within my personal preferences of, toe. Everyone has their own personal preferences as to, you know, how big that gap gets before they're going to do something about that. So that's fine. But one thing that can be happening is, even though that my wheels are perfectly parallel, is, as we've mentioned, they may not be parallel to the frame. So to check for crabbing, I'm going to grab this other gauge here, and just got some pieces of paper to put the feet on so it can slide around a little bit easier. And so how you check for the crabbing is you basically want to make sure that you set the one side right up against that same spot on the wheel. And then on the other side, you want to make sure that you're up against a part of the frame, and you want to make sure that it is perpendicular to the frame. And so I'm coming in at a right angle. I'm contacting on both the frame and the wheel. So I'm going to turn it on. It's going to give me a reading. I'm going to zero it and then take it out. Switch it over to this side here. And then do that again. I'm going to always start by making sure that the end is touching the wheel first, and then I'm going to make sure it's touching the frame. I'm going to look and make sure that it's nice and perpendicular to the frame, reline everything up, and I'm getting a reading of about 4 millimeters. And so while my general toe is fine, I am actually crabbing by about 4 millimeters. And so, Kriga.
Yep.
But
I think we're going to go to the other method. What if they don't have a gauge?
Right. Got it. Getting off track. I've showed basically used some of the equipment that I have to check my toe and whether I'm crabbing or not. But at home, some of you guys may not have a lot of this equipment. And so there's actually a pretty easy method that Paul Schulte from Top End has made a video using that method to kind of check the toe and, I believe, crabbing as well. And so I think we're going to show that video real quick. But that is basically how to check your toe with a gauge.
The prompt kit on how to check your toe in, toe out. So what you want to do with the racing chair is you want to make sure that, number one, your tires are inflated and that all your hardware is secure. Number two, toe in, toe out is measured from the rear of the wheels and the front of the wheels. So what you're going to want to do is find objects that are approximately the height of halfway up the wheels. So these will work just fine. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to use these to make sure that I'm measuring the same height front and rear. So I position those behind the wheels. I'm going to measure from the center of tire to center of tire. This measures 20.5. We're going to go around to the front and do the same measurement. Okay. So now we're going to take the same measurement on the front leading edge of the wheels. So using the same materials to make sure I got the consistent height, I'm going to measure from the center of the wheel, center of tire, on one side, to the center of the tire on the other. And I've got 20.5. This means that that distance measures the same in the front and the back on this racing chair, and the toe is good. Now that I know that my chair has good toe in, toe out, I'm now going to measure from the frame to the center of the tire. So holding my tape measure level and then positioning it about the center of the frame, I measure on one side, and I've got 9 inches there. And then to the other side, holding it level, I've got about 9 inches on that side. So that means that my wheels are squared to the main beam. If the measurements that you took in the rear and the front aren't the same, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take a 5mm Allen wrench, and loosen, but don't remove, the bolt that's holding the camber tube clamp. What this does is it releases the pressure on the camber bushing. Camber bushing is what the wheel screws onto. Once that's been loosened, you want to take a wrench, fit the wrench around the camber bushing itself, and it can be rotated. As I pull up on my wrench, maybe get this from the side. As I pull on the wrench this way, it's going to bring the front of the wheel closer to the mainframe. As I push this way, it's going to take it a little further away. So what you want to do is you want to adjust the direction that you need. Just slightly tighten again, just a little bit, and then repeat your process measuring center of tire to center of tire in the rear and the front. It's an iterative process where you're going to want to adjust this just a little bit at a time. It doesn't take much. You're going to rotate the camber bushings just a little bit at a time until the measurement in the center of the wheels measures the same in the front and the back, and the measurement from the center of the tire into the front into the main beam measures the same on each side. Once the values match front and back, what you want to do is come in and tighten the bolt that tightens the camber clamp, point where it leaves an imprint on your palm.
All right, guys, see, there's several ways of doing it. You can use paper towels, you can use magic toys, you can use milk bottles, Coke bottles, you can use, as long as you do the same on both sides, and the same on either side, and also the same back and front. Okay, so Paul gave us a good explanation there how to do it real quick at home when you don't have all the tools. But there's still that one thing that kind of it's also important, right? Like I said earlier, if you have your frame and on the frame there's the wheels, and the wheels might be going like this, or one wheel is in or one wheel is out. Okay, so I have created a scenario here on this chair now. So this chair behind me is toe in, okay? So we know now what toe in is. Toe in means the front is closer to each other than the back of the back part of the wheels. Okay, so now the question is, I have to adjust one of these wheels now because one has to go out, but which one is it going to be? Okay, so we've seen that how Paul measured it, and also how Daniel used his toy, his fancy tool to measure that distance as well. But let's just run over this one more time, so you guys can have a clear idea of when we're done here. Okay, so toe in. So we want to know from the center point here, which wheel is the closest to the mainframe. Okay, which wheel is it going to be? The right side wheel, or is it going to be the left side wheel? All right, so I'm going to use my tape. Okay, so again, the way Paul measured, he measured to the outside of the wheel. I like to measure to the inside of the wheel. There's no difference. Okay, as long as you do the same on both sides. You just have to be consequent in how you measure your measurements. Okay, so I'm going to do first here from the center to the inside edge of the wheel, and I'm going to see. Okay, so it's just under 8 inches. All right, let's do the same on the left side. And I see this is just over 8 inches. Okay, so we know over 8, the left side is further away, the right side is closer. So the right side is the one that we're gonna have to change. You agree with me? The right side is closer, so we have to push it out. So like he said in that video earlier, when you sit behind the chair, I'm not getting in behind the chair now, but when you sit behind your chair and you've released your camber plug, your camber, the clamps, the bushing clamps, you're going to sit behind your chair, and when you grab your wrench and you push forward, it's going to open up in front. So I'm sitting behind and I'm going to open up in front. So I'm going to push forward, but I'm sitting in front now. So I'm going to pull. All right. So I'm going to pull like I'm sitting behind. I'm going to push. So what you do is, like you said, a little bit at a time. Okay. And always brace one hand to the chair as well. Grab somewhere on the chair where you can brace to the chair. I don't know if you can see, but I'm going to don't pull too much. I'm going to give it a good pull so you can see the front wheel move when I pull it down. So I don't know if you could see the line of the front wheel moved outwards. Okay, I probably pulled it too much, but that's okay. I just wanted to give you an idea. So remember, when I measured, I said the right wheel was under 8 inches. Let's see what it is now. Now, in fact, the right wheel is just over 8 inches. So it might be close to the left wheel. So let's see. The left wheel is, like I said, also just a little bit over 8 inches. So these two wheels are almost very well lined up to the main part of the frame now. So now, when they are lined up, now you check your alignment again. You go to the front and measure your front, and go to the back and measure your toe in the back. And then if you see they're very similar, you can leave it right there. Or if you feel like if it's over 1/4 inch or maybe 5 millimeters, it's getting too much, then you can start play, and then you can do one at a time a little bit. You know, you can do one on the left and one on the right at a time. But then when it's minor distances, just very tiny little movements you're gonna do. Okay, so I think we got a good idea of toe in and toe out in this chair and what Daniel did for us. I think Barry is going to give us some good insight on the Eagle chair.
7/16 range. The audio on this is having a little bit of problem, so I'm going to speak as the video plays. Well, in the picture here on an Eagle chair, we line up the rear wheels from the rear of it. As you can see, this is a different gauge we use in our shop. And what it required is on the line of Eagle Soaring Eagle Racer, you need 2 7/16 inches and the alignment gauge. It's very important. We align usually outside the rims. I agree with Daniel, do not line off tires. Tires are very inconsistent. Make sure that when you're trying to line this, you can use this, towel holders, bottles. It really helps to have a alignment gauge. There's several different models out there. There's a lot of models that are T-shaped, cheaper ones. The dual ones cost a little more. So what we're looking here is to check the back of it and see what the alignment is. Now, once we check it and get it adjusted here to the back, and as you see right there on the edge of the rim, just as Daniel was doing there, and Creek, you'll move it to the front end and check to see what it is on the front end. Now, if it's like Creek was talking about toed in, and I'll start with that since he was mentioning it first. If it's narrower in the front than it is in the rear, you have to bring the width of the wheels out. Now, on Eagle Racers, they have a different setup of axles, so the crabbing part of it, most of the time, that's something, unless you're in a crash or something that you wouldn't have to check. But on the toe in, it's very important because of tire sizes, anything, inflation or tires, you want to make sure they're all tightened. But as you see there where I'm loosening the nut, what this is do, you loosen the outside nut, that inside nut you can see there. Okay, if you turn it around or two, what it does, it finely tunes the alignment on the front end. Now that would actually be to tow it, to bring it out some. If it was towed in too much and you wanted to bring it out, you tighten them in, and like I was doing there, I was actually doing it so that the wheels would, because if you tighten on the back, it makes the front wider. When you loosen on the back and you tighten the one nut there, it pushes that out a little bit, and then it will bring it in if it's towed out. And whatever happens to it is you only have to do it to one side because it's designed so that both wheels move at the same time. It's just a length of the rod. Now we have them on both sides, but you really only have to fine tune on one side of it. And remember, if you want to tow it out, you bring it in. If you want to tow it in, then you take the nut on the inside and make the rod longer so that it lengthens it. And all to do any of this, 2 7/16 wrenches are a necessity. How to do this right here. Any of the, and it is, I agree with Craig here. Anytime you travel, hit a pothole, any of those things, definitely start checking to see if you had one wheel or another bend or move or anything. It's not something that you do constantly, but definitely before events or on a scheduled maintenance of every few months or so, even if you're just practicing. Any of the, as you see these, any questions, address them to the Q&A section of the program here, and we'll be glad to address those.
Perfect. And this is Lily from Move United. Barry, we're going to move on to your next video that we have up here as well. So feel free to continue as we switch over.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So we are just screen sharing here. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. All right, so we're moving on to compensators now.
Sure. Again, this is on an Eagle chair with adjusting the compensator nut that holds it on how stiff it is. And that's for the handle, whether you want it to be a stiff or softer. And showing in this video right here, as you can see, the compensator cylinder, first thing I suggest is always make sure those little nuts that hold those against the cylinder, the rods against the cylinder, those are always tight, and the nuts that hold the cylinder on. Just way too many times I've seen one work loose and somebody's compensator's moving, and it's a simple thing of just tightening the nut up. As you see on this compensator right here, you'll see there's on this, it has two nuts. These are 7/16 also. And they're double nutted so that you lock the two together so that they don't over time loosen themselves, and that it stays tight the whole time that you're using it. Under the bottom of it, you'll see the 7/16 there. The two, what you do, 1 7/16 open in on top, one on bottom. You take the two wrenches, pull them against each other. It will break the two apart. What that does is that loosens the top one, loosens the bottom one. You will see here in the video in just a second about taking a 3/16 Allen wrench under the bottom, because these are socket head screws. Hold that in place. Okay, now the nut that's closest to the compensator handle, you can tighten it a little bit or loosen it a little bit, depending on how you feel your compensator should be. Now, how we adjust them is we put them tight enough so that when you turn the steering, you don't turn the handle at the same time. Now, some people like them tighter because they can hop, they can do lots of different suggestions here because some people are way more athletic than others. And some people like them just totally soft, so that the handle will move when they do steering. That's a personal thing. But in tightening this, you tighten that bottom one down, get it the way you want it. Hold the bottom screw there, the T-handle, tighten the top nut against it, and then put your 2 wrenches back together and lock the 2 nuts together. Once they get locked together, they're not going to loosen, twist, or do anything because they're locked. The top one's a lock nut, the bottom one's a standard nut. So once they're locked together, they're there. One of the things in this video I talk about, and as you do this, after a certain year or so, yes, it is nice to change those 2 nuts there, because if you loosen them, tighten them enough, they do get rounded just a little bit. And a lot of people put a lot of pressure on them as they are tightening them. That's a very important part. One of the things that I mentioned in these compensators, and our maintenance is over the years, take it completely off of it, wipe it, clean it, maybe file it or sand it, put it back together, back to the same process, and then your compensator works a lot better when it's been cleaned under there. Again, if you have questions.
Very good. Thank you, Barry. That was great. It's neat to see all the different arrangements between the different brands and such. I was noticing you have the compensator on the top of the beam there. Is there a reason why somebody might want it on the top versus the bottom?
I designed it on top years ago because of certain geometry problems in engineering and others that I had to handle. But either top or bottom is definitely acceptable. I build them both. Sometimes it's just reach, it's location, you know, what you get to feel for. And lots of variables there when it comes to the athlete's opinion.
Gotcha. Nice to have the option there.
There, it's just a lot of times it's what we manufacture in general stuff, and then a lot of times as an athlete is comfortable with something, then they may like it under the bottom all the time. So that's very fine. No problems there.
Yeah, very good. Okay. Lily, I think we're going to go to something that's totally unrelated, guys, and I'm sorry for for jumping around here. We've had some sessions in the past that we couldn't quite get all of the topics fit in. And so one of them, we've got a few extra minutes before we go to the questions. So one of them was about using valve extenders and how to do that basically. So yeah, if we can go ahead and start that, that'd be great. Hopefully this sound will work for us. We'll see.
So you will need to use valve extenders when the rim depth gets a little too long for the valve stem. So you can see on this metal spoked wheel that there is plenty of a length on that valve stem for me to take a pump adapter and to get a nice good seal on that. However, if I took this same tire and I'm going to try and put it on a carbon fiber quad spoke. So I take the same tire, there's the valve, and you can see that it's barely poking through the end there. And so what's happening is this rim is too deep for the valve to be coming through the other end, and so I wouldn't be able to inflate this at all. And so this is where a valve extender will come into play. And so we have a dust cap here. I'm going to unscrew that. It uses these threads here, and a valve extender will use those same threads and screw onto the valve stem. So now, if we put this through a rim, we would have enough space here to grab onto the end here with a pump adapter. However, a metal-on-metal interface that is right here is not a very good airtight seal. And so one more thing that I want to note is that I can no longer access that nut that is on the end of the valve here. And so we need to do some prep work to get this ready for a valve extender. So the first thing we need to do is to fix this nut in its topmost position. So we do that by taking a pair of pliers here and grabbing that nut and over opening it. And so what that will do is that will prevent the nut from rattling down and preventing me from inflating the tire the next time I try to go and inflate my tires. And so the next thing we'll need to do is use some plumber's tape and create an airtight seal here. And so I've got a bit of plumber's tape here, and I'm just going to take my valve, and if you're viewing it from above, you want to make sure that you are wrapping the tape in a clockwise direction. So what that will do is it will prevent when you screw the valve extender on the top of it, that will prevent it from unwrapping this tape. And so another thing to notice here is that I am not going above the top of the valve stem here. And so this tape will not interfere with me inflating the tire. And so now I take my valve extender, I've opened the nut, I have my airtight seal here, and I just screw that on. It's going to be a little hard sometimes. Just got to work at it a bit. And now I should have a nice airtight seal that can fit all the way through a carbon fiber rim. And so I'm going to take my pump here and start pumping up this tire. So you can see that I have a nice airtight seal here, and I have a nice airtight seal at the valve and valve extender. And so normally at this point I have an inflated tire, and I would try to screw that nut back down. But there are two things preventing me from doing that. First of all, I have fixed it in its uppermost position, and I can no longer access it because I have the valve extender on here. But we really don't need to worry about that because the primary way a Presto valve works is by this high pressure in the tire pushing up on the plunger and keeping a nice airtight seal, and so that no air will leak. So that nut is really just a safety. But if I go to inflate my tire, sometimes that plunger gets a little stuck. And I will see my pressure gauge spike to a really high pressure, and so I know that the plunger is stuck. So to get it unstuck, I can either take this is a bent spoke, or I can take a small Allen key and anything that fits inside of the extender and pop that seal. And so at this point, I've popped the seal, and so now I should be able to inflate my tire as normal. And so now that we have an inflated tire on the wheel, some people are tempted to unscrew the valve extender in order to save a little bit of weight. Don't do that, because the next time you need to inflate your tire, I cannot just screw the valve extender back on and expect it to work. You actually need to remove the tire, redo the Teflon tape, and everything you've just done, and re-glue the tire in order to inflate it.
All right, so that was just a little blast from the past there on the valve extenders. So if you have any questions on those, go ahead and submit them as well. We have a lot of questions here in our Q&A, so we're gonna just work through those here. First question is for Barry. Are Eagle chairs USA made and where? And how long does delivery take if you purchase a new one?
Yes, we're located in Snellville, Georgia, right out about 30 miles east of Atlanta. Time delivery is usually 4 weeks.
All right, very good. Barry, how do you go about ordering an Eagle chair?
Our phone number, we can give that. If you look up Eagle Sports Chairs, Google it online, all our information is online also. They can Google it and we're listed under that. You call our office and the office manager will be glad to help you with any problems or measurements. We actually even send out measuring gauges to somebody that doesn't understand how to do it.
Very good. Okay, great. You have quite a shop down there. That is a neat place to see. Let's see here. Next question. I think I'm actually going to take this one. I didn't get to talk enough today. Let's see here. This question is, where can you get the gauge that Daniel used to measure the wheels? And so that one is actually out of the UK. That's Dynolite is the brand. I think probably emailing is the best way to get in touch with them. So I will try to send that that email address on when we follow up on the questions later on. That one you can use for all the different measurements. And it kind of comes apart and is very lightweight. So those are some of the nice features about it. But it's also, it doesn't have those feet quite as far apart as the Eagle or top end ones do. So it maybe is a little bit more susceptible to skewing from side to side. Let's see here. Next question. Anybody can take this one. Is the term for wheel to main beam misalignment crabbing, and how does that affect performance? Barry, you want to take that one?
Sure. Well, and Creed spoke on this very effectively. That is correct. And what it does is it causes the chair to not track straight. When you have both wheels the same distance from the center frame, the chair tracks straight. Actually, as you have one wheel that comes in some, you would maybe notice it that you had to change your compensator a little bit. Like if it got bent during shipping, bent during, like on a flight or a pothole or something, you might notice that you had to change your compensator to go around the curve of a track at the same time that you'd been using it for a month, and now you had to change a little bit. That's how you could notice that. But it's very important because the chair just doesn't roll the same. If you was designing a car, they square them like a race car or something else where you got four wheels. They have to square everything up. It has to be precise there, and that's the reason that's very important. I hope that's a good explanation there for you.
Excellent, thank you. Let's see here. Let's put this one too. Krieger, how about this? Some advantages of a four-spoked rear wheel. So we're talking carbon fiber here versus disc.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so carbon fiber wheels doesn't matter what, they are good. Okay, so they are just more effective and better than regular spoke wheels. The four-spoke wheel is definitely a little bit lighter. That's one advantage. So I think sprinters like the four spokes more. And also, when you do get some crosswinds, it's probably going to help you a little bit more as well when you have a four-spoke wheel. But I would say, in general, most of us actually feel that that a disc wheel on the road just rolls better. It maintains speed better. Why exactly? It's hard to say, but it's definitely more aerodynamic. Okay, so when you have perfect conditions, you're definitely going to choose a disc wheel. I do know that on track races and indoor track races or cyclists, they like to use a four-spoke wheel in front and a disc wheel in the back. So I think that's, for aerodynamics, you really want that disc wheel in the back. Four-spoke wheel is maybe a little bit risky where so you cannot use. They don't want to use a disc wheel in front just because of the crosswinds or air moving or whatever the effect might be. But if it's my choice, if I do a 100-meter sprint, I might just go for a four-spoke. But if I do a 800, 1500 and up, for a bigger guy, I think I'll go for a disc wheel, and definitely for road races and marathons.
Very good. Cost-wise, are they fairly similar to each other? Am I remembering that?
Very similar to each other. Yes. There's not I don't think there is any difference in price in the two of them. Might be a little bit more in the four-spoke, but I think the main reason for that is there's not such demand on the four-spoke, so it takes longer. It takes actually sometimes special order to get four spokes. They're not always available readily, where disc wheels are more, in demand. So it's easier to get a disc wheel.
And I'm kind of remembering from you guys' session on wheels and hand rings that just remember, anytime you switch from one type of a wheel to the other, you're not only looking at switching the wheel, but the hand rings are going to be different as far as their attachment. So that all has to be ordered as well. Okay. Daniel, the name of the L-shaped adapter for inflating tires, and where can you find one?
I think the adapters that I have come pretty much directly from Zip. They're a manufacturer of carbon fiber wheels, and so they make that adapter.
Yeah, so just ordering it online. Now they unfortunately don't make racing wheelchair wheels anymore, but they still make cycling wheels. So those are still out there.
Or you can just Google, L-shaped adapters, valve adapters. There are actually more. You can find them on Amazon as well. You don't have to buy direct from Zip, but that is, I think it's the best one. It's the one from Zip, like Daniel showed us.
They're all okay. And last question, it'd be great actually, I think, to get all of you guys' input on this one. Maybe we'll start with Daniel, and then I don't know. Let's see here. Krieger and Barry, you can fight for who goes next. What is your preferred tubular 700C for your rear wheels? What tire do you like to run?
So I use Podium TTs. I have found that they're reliable over over a marathon. I use a slightly
bulkier variety of it. I think I use the 22 millimeter, yeah, 22 millimeters when I'm on the road. But if I'm on the track, I would go to their 19. I found them to be quite reliable. You know, they have a good lifespan, and so I've pretty much used them.
If I can chip in, Barry, I like the, okay, yeah, this has got the Podium TT. This is 19 millimeter on. What is nice about the Podiums, they have 19, and I think, what did you say, Dan? You've got a 22, right?
Yeah, I think they come 22s. Yep.
22, and you can go bigger. I know Barry's gonna probably say, I have a feeling what you're gonna say is a great tire. That I always used to like that you recommended. I'm not going to mention it. I'm going to leave that to you if you do mention that. But I have a Victoria Evo. You can see the yellow middle line there. There's no air in this tire now. It's a good tire. It's Victoria. It's called the Evo, and this is a 22 millimeter tire. It rolls well. It really rolls well. But unfortunately, you have to air it up quite often, every second day or third day. Where the tempos or the TTs, you can air it up and you're good to go.
Okay, well, I think both of you have the right answer. I'm a very firm believer of Podiums, Continental Podiums. They're excellent tires. I sell Evos. They're an excellent tire too. A little bit more cost on the Evos than the Podiums most of the time. But, you know, I really feel like it's what you feel safe with when, you know, if you feel like that those Evos are the best, then they are the best. Because all the tires are very, very, very good. Even the Panaracer tires, the Marathons, are excellent tires. They just can't stand the abuse that we put on when we're on the road practicing, racing, or whatever. So there are more of a time trials and controlled circumstance tires. So I don't think there's a wrong answer. I think what you get in is what you get comfortable with. And Evos are certainly good, and Podiums are certainly good too. Tempos too. All that we used to have a little more tires available that kind of bounced around, and the manufacturers has settled a little bit more on these type tires that y'all use now because they're the cream of the crop.
I think that's all we have for questions, Lily.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you so much for everyone joining us. Thank you to Daniel and Krieg and Barry. You guys are all so knowledgeable. And I'd also like to thank Kim, too, who is kind of the voice in the sky right now. She is Daniel Romanchuk's mom as well as manager. So thank you, Kim, for moderating everything. If you haven't already checked out our chat box, we do have a survey in there. We will have 2 more sessions here, and we'd love to hear what more topics that you want to know about, as well as let us know how we're doing and what we can improve on. So please feel free to click that link in the chat box, or you'll also be prompted at the end of this presentation too. And we encourage you to visit our Move United Sport Adapt at Home page, where you can find a variety of virtual programming, live, on-demand, sport-specific training and education. And feel free to tag us at Move United Sport, as well as use the hashtag Adapt at Home. We love seeing how everyone's moving. We love seeing all the important information that you've been using throughout this entire session of wheelchair racing equipment. So it's just been great. And thank you again. Special thanks to Barry for joining us this week. He's been a wheelchair equipment manager at the Paralympic Games, as well as he's owned and operated Eagle Sports Chairs for multiple years now. And we've plugged in his contact information as well in the chat box too, the website, his email, and his phone number, but we'll make sure we send that out as a follow-up email. We have recorded this session too, so you will all receive an email with this recording, as well as just more information to check out our YouTube page where the other sessions have been recorded and saved there. But we encourage you to tune in next excuse me, next Thursday, July 16th, again, 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time for more information on wheelchair racing equipment. But with that said, we are all set for the day. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we hope you have a great weekend.
Thank you to you and everyone there.